Hello and welcome to Multiparadigm Data Science with the Wolfram Language. Section 1, the project workflow. Data science projects attempt to use data to answer certain questions so that you can derive some useful insights from the answers and act on them. A flexible, modular, iterative workflow can serve as a roadmap in this quest to get from data-driven questions to actionable insights. Here are 5 stages in which we can build up such a workflow. We start out with the questions, then move on to the data wrangling stage where we import the data and shape it. Then we do some exploratory analysis to get an intuitive understanding of the data before launching into the analysis stage to try different models, algorithms, and techniques to dissect the data. Finally, we try to communicate the results in a clear and comprehensive way to our audience. What the multi-paradigm approach adds to this otherwise straightforward path is the option to work with different types of data, flat files or databases, audio or images, sensor readings, data script off the web, and at the same time, it provides the scope to branch out at every stage of the workflow, experimenting with and assembling a broad, flexible computational toolkit to incorporate data processing, analysis, and visualization capabilities into one start-to-finish workflow. And you build this workflow iteratively in the spirit of agile development. You keep tweaking and modifying different stages, all the while keeping the original question in mind. So your workflow is driven by the questions, and it is not restricted to traditional techniques associated with specific kind of data or field of study. Let's try to use this workflow template to execute a simple data science project. Let's do some social media analysis. We'll look at the Wolfram Research Twitter feed and see if we can get some data-driven insights out of it. So here are the tweets containing text, URLs, hashtags, mentions of other users, etc. Now from this data, we want to create a report on the Twitter activity, something like this, which would perhaps help the social media team to strategize for a Twitter campaign. The first stage of the workflow is where we frame the questions. To get some useful conclusions from the data, we need to start out with the right questions. We have a list of tweets made by Wolfram Research. What can we learn from them? Now, that is a pretty broad question. It makes sense to break it down into a few specific questions that can guide our analysis. Questions like, how many tweets are sent? How many of these are being liked or retweeted? Which hashtags are used most often? Which should indicate what topics are being discussed. Also, who were mentioned in these tweets to highlight the people involved in these conversations. In addition to the topic-specific question, it's helpful to keep in mind the audience of the analysis right from the start. For this example project, the end audience could be hypothetically Wolfram's social media team. Perhaps they would like to see a monthly report on the account's Twitter activity, a snapshot that presents answers to questions like how many, what, who, with regard to the tweets. Now, the questions can be fuzzy as we start out, and they can change later. In fact, more interesting questions may surface as we sift through the data. However, it is important to set up these questions at the beginning with the audience in mind. Otherwise, with the sheer variety of things that we can try with the data, we might end up wasting time on unnecessary analysis. Now that we have some questions, let's get our hands on the data and see what we can find out.